Okay, very welcome along to the Iconic Newspapers Hurling podcast. This podcast, of course, comes in the week of a bumper feature amongst all the iconic newspaper titles. And Hurling is back this weekend, and I'm sure we're all glad to have it. Joining me on the call is Noel Dundon, Robert Cribben, Brian Lowry, and Colin Kinsler. Only one place to start, I suppose. We'll start in the home of the champions of the league and the All-Ireland column in Limerick. John Kiley, I know you spoke to him this week. How do you improve on perfect, I suppose, is the first question.
Yeah, that's the big question, Dan, isn't it? I mean, 2020 is such a remarkable year for Limerick, winning the Waterford Crystal National Hurling League, obviously Munster Championship, and then the All-Ireland. Second Lee McCarthy in 3 years. Phenomenal year. And I suppose, will be most people's favourites for the competitions again this year. Something John Kiley spoke about during the week was when Limerick defended their title in 2019, their All-Ireland title in 2019, one of the problems they had was consistency. So he's marked that down as being absolutely key if Limerick are to retain their provincial and All-Ireland titles in 2021.
A couple of new faces in the panel as well, Colin. I see you had a story this week. 4 new ones in, and Paddy O'Loughlin taking a break.
That's right, yeah. 4 new faces in. I suppose, players who had big underage reputations. Barry Murphy coming back in from Doon. Be interesting to see how they get on. And, obviously, great excitement and anticipation, I think, for anybody with any interest in hurling and GA. It's unfortunate, obviously, we won't have supporters there. But to be fair to the TV companies, there's wall-to-wall coverage the weekend in Division 1A and 1B, games live on TV. Obviously not the same as being there, but at least supporters will get to see their own county and other counties playing as well.
One of the big things, John Kiley, you touched on there was consistency, but also something that people will have seen from outside is the depth of squad. So Mike Casey, potential to return. Richie English was back in time to play in the All-Ireland final last year. Didn't play, but is 110%, I think John Kiley said this week, ready to go.
Yeah, that was the quote, and he's hoping that Mike Casey will be back to feature at some stage in the championship. Obviously the build-up this year is unlike any other, and the teams are only back in collective on-field training a couple of weeks. So, soft tissue injuries, knocks, they're just going to happen. And I suppose the ability to deal with injuries and players being unavailable is going to be massive for all the counties, particularly when you look at the run of Alliance League fixtures. The Division 1A and 1B are hugely competitive. Games are coming week after week, and then there's such a sharp break into the championship. Normally after the league, counties players would go back and play with their clubs a couple of opening rounds of the championship, and then come back together for the championship. But here, the club obviously is parked until later in the year. So, from the first ball being thrown in on Saturday afternoon, it's going to be full on in terms of league, short gap, and then straight into the championship.
Well, Limerick obviously opening up their title defence in the league this weekend, as you mentioned, Colin. I'll throw over to Noel Dundon in Tipperary. Noel, I mean, if you were to dangle anyone in front of Limerick to get the blood going and the juices flowing, it would be Tipperary. I'm sure Tip will be mad to get back on track this weekend as well against their near neighbours.
Yeah, you could probably say the same thing, Don, that if you were to dangle anyone in front of Tipperary at the moment, Limerick would be the team you'd want. And that's kind of the way that Liam Sheedy has been talking this week. He's been speaking about the challenge of going down there, and he's kind of the view that Tipperary can't really lose with this game. Not so much that you can't lose the match, but that you can't lose in terms of the experience that you're going to gain down there. You're coming up against the Munster League All-Ireland champions, probably the most impressive team in the country for the last number of years. You're going to be trying to give some of the new guys a little bit of a run out as well, because in the situation that Tipperary are in at the minute, there's quite a few of the All-Ireland winning under 20 and under 21 teams of the last couple of seasons who've been itching to get into the team and break their way in. And at the other end of the scale, some of the guys who have been real pillars for the county over the last 10 years or thereabouts are beginning to creak a little bit. So, there's place to be won there. And I think Liam Sheedy has been saying to his team this week, impress me, go down and impress me, put your hand up for a place in the championship. And ultimately this year, the league is going to be all about using the games as an opportunity to find out what your starting 15 or 20 players are going to be for the championship.
Robert, down in Kilkenny, the 23rd season, I believe, of the Brian Cody era. I'm sure nobody down there is looking to throw him out just yet, but they haven't won in All-Ireland in a couple of months, so they'll be upset down there, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's just when you say the 23rd season, it's hard to believe, like nearly a quarter of a century as the manager alone, and that doesn't even include his playing career. Like, so it's mad altogether. But even from talking to him last week, he's enthusiastic as ever, looking forward to it. Mixed enough year last year, so it'll be interesting to see a few new faces on the panel as well. A few old ones have left too. So it's going to be very interesting over the next few weeks to see where Kilkenny lie in the shape of things, really.
Looking back at last season, Robert, they wouldn't have been too far off, just narrowly missed out in those big games. But yet, as we mentioned with Noel earlier, like that's just not acceptable, not good enough in the big counties that have won so much.
Yeah, and you mentioned consistency there with Limerick already. I think there was a bit of that with Kilkenny as well. Even the 3 championship games, like 2 of them were nearly the exact same, the Dublin game and the All-Ireland semi-final against Waterford. Brilliant in parts for the first halves, and then they just couldn't stop whatever momentum. They were lucky enough the first day to do that, to stop it against Dublin and get over the line. But a young, energetic Waterford team were just too good for them. And it's just then in between that, like the Galway game, they were brilliant for parts of the Galway game. So just that consistency will be you don't know what to expect really over the next few weeks. We're going to get injuries. You don't know what way panels are going to line up. It's match after match after match. So I think they can just look to Saturday and just move from there, really.
What's the depth like in Kilkenny? That sounds like a stupid question a couple of years ago, but what's coming through that people can be excited about?
Yeah, well, there is question marks, of course, because they haven't been as successful as they would have been at minor and under 20 over recent years. But there is a couple of nice players, the likes of Dara Corkin would have won an All-Ireland or 2 with Ballyhead Shamrocks. I'd say he could come into contention in the defence this year, especially with the likes of Paul Murphy leaving the scene. You have Owen Guilfoyle from James Stephens, who's been very impressive. He would have been the leading light on the under 20 team last year. King Kenny as well from James Stephens. So there is talent there. It's just they've a bit of a mark to step up to, if you know what I mean. So it'll be interesting to see. But talent, as always, there is talent there in Kilkenny, of course.
Is there any murmurings about Brian Cody? Is people still happy for him to be at the helm? It has been 23 years, as you said.
Yeah. If I was to be honest, on the last winter, like it was probably the most up and down you would have found, not just Kilkenny, but around Ireland. You would have had murmurings of what would it be like if they changed things, but what would it be like if you did change things? It could go the other way. So it's hard to know. I think just with the likes of Colin Fennelly taking a year out this year, like it's not that positive when a top player like that leaves, but Brian has done this so many times. You wouldn't be surprised if he changed the thing completely around. Even the 2 All-Ireland finals they've got to, people didn't expect them to get anywhere near the All-Ireland finals those years recently against Tipperary. So yeah, there's definitely a bit of positivity, if a bit of negativity there too.
I'm sure always dangerous and the cats aren't talking themselves up. I'm sure that's the case. Brian Lowry, you've been waiting away there for your opportunity to shine. You're between 2 stools up there. You're going to talk to us about Laois and Offaly. Let's start with Laois. Cheddar is back, but there's a few injuries in the panel as well.
There is, Don, yeah, and just listen to the lads. Limerick, Tipperary, and Kilkenny. I think their league and championship goals are very different to what the goals will be in Laois. Yeah, bad news this week. I suppose it was well documented before now that Mark Cavanaugh is out for the year. Mark Cavanaugh, for anyone who doesn't know Mark Cavanaugh, he's a young player from Downey Earl. He's class. There's no other word to describe him. He'd be the equivalent of Limerick losing Aaron Gillan or Kilkenny losing TJ Reid, Cork losing Pat Horgan. So he's a massive blow, and especially when Laois wouldn't have the depth of panels that Kilkenny or Tipperary or Limerick could have as well. And that wasn't bad enough. Stephen Picky-Maher, who would be another excellent forward, along with Willie Dunphy, both of them look like they're going to miss out on the year as well. And in the backs, Ronan Broderick and Eric Killeen are also. I know Ronan Broderick is definitely out with a cruciate, and Eric Killeen is looking like he might miss out as well. So he's on the back. Cheddar's on the back foot straight away, but it was a very positive appointment after all the furore that went on last year with Eddie Brennan. I think Laois County Board have to be commended. We're always quick to give up county boards, but they wasted little time in getting their man in, and he's back. It's not something he planned. I was talking during the week. It wasn't something he thought he'd go back to, but he's one of those people that when his county or his club will come calling, no, there's no way he'll say no. And he said once the approach was made, he just made sure that he was in the right frame of mind, had the time to do it, and I don't think he was ever going to say no, really.
It's going to be a tough league for him, as you say, with injuries, but also a tough start with Wexford as well. It's not going to get easy from there.
No, and the number one aim for Laois this year is to stay in Division 1. There's no point in sugarcoating it any further than that. Kilkenny, Tip, Limerick all probably have aspirations of finishing near the top of the league. For Laois, it's all about staying in it and maybe picking up a couple of wins along the way. Wexford away, yeah, tough start. He's probably happy enough that he's Wexford early because they play Wexford in the championship later on in the summer. So I think the last thing Wexford or Laois would have wanted was to play them in the last game, maybe a couple of weeks before. A lot of shadow boxing going on. To have them first up, and I suppose if you look at the games that Laois have in the league, they have Wexford and Kilkenny away. They have Dublin and Clare at home, and their last game is in Belfast against Antrim. And when you're looking in it from the outside, that's probably the only game, the one in Belfast, that Laois will go into as favourites. The other 4 games, Laois are going to go in as pretty big underdogs, I'd say. But that's not to say they can't. They were very close to beating Clare last year down in Nolan Park in the qualifiers. They actually should have bet them. Clare were down to 14 men for most of the game. They wasted a lot of chances, so they'll be buoyed enough from that to have Clare, and that game's in O'Moore Park. They've beaten Dublin recently in the championship a couple of years ago. That game is in O'Moore Park as well. So it's far from beyond them, and the right man is at the helm. There's no doubt about that. You mentioned during the week that no stone will be left unturned, and it's a bit of a cliche. And it was my first time to meet Cheddar, and I'd heard all the tales about him being such a passionate man. And believe me, when he said it, it's something that you believe, because just the way he speaks about Laois, the way he speaks about the job he has, I well believe that there'll be no stone left unturned. But make no mistake about it, staying in Division 1 is the main priority for Laois for the league.
You were talking earlier there, Brian, about listing off who'll be looking at the top and who'll be thereabouts come the end of the league and the end of the championship. One team who won't be thereabouts come the championship because they're not even in it is Offaly. Look, fall from grace. There is a bit of positivity up there, second year for Fennelly, and of course their high-profile son throwing a bit of sponsorship their way as well in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, big news, I suppose, last week with Shane Lowry coming on board. It's a great thing to do. As a family, we're all very proud of him for doing it, and we're very proud of what he's done over the last number of years. And it's something he'd always kind of, you'd be talking him up and down. Offie J would always nearly come into the conversation with him, and about he'd love to see this happening, love to see this happening, but it probably wasn't just a case of throwing money at the meter. He wanted to give some sort of as well as financial support, some sort of a professional support as well. And I think he was quite keen not to just throw a figure at it and give that county board, say, here, do what you want with it. He was pretty intent on putting some sort of a structure around it, and it's a massive coup. It's a massive fillip for Michael Dayton and the gang up there. They have been doing a lot of good things. But as you say, they're in the Christy Ring Cup, and they're not only are they not in the Liam McCarthy Cup, they're not even in the second tier, the Joe McDonagh. They're in the Christy Ring, and the league for them isn't going to be simple. And people might think, on paper, Offaly, they'll win that, but Offaly have a very, very young panel. They beat Dublin a couple of years ago in an under-20 semi-final, under-21 semi-final from Parnell Park, and the team I think this year is going to be based a lot around those young guys. Now Shane Dooley's still involved, 15th or 16th season. He didn't really play last year, hampered with injuries. There's no guarantee. Actually, I'd probably say that he probably won't start a lot of games this year. There's a lot of good talent in the county, but they're very, very young, and they're going to be playing a lot of Joe McDonagh teams in the league. They're in Division 2A, and I wouldn't see it as a given that'll come out of that league. But in terms of the championship, they have 3 games to win the Christy Ring. They have to play Sligo, and if they win that, they'll probably come up against the likes of maybe Roscommon, Derry, Wicklow, and you would be expecting awfully. And Michael Fennelly's in his second year. They got caught by Down last year on penalties, but I don't think he'll get much leeway this year if they don't come out at Christy Ring Cup, to be honest with you.
Yeah, fair point. Oh, the only way is up, I suppose, is the best thing for Offaly Hurling. Everyone wants to see him back. Noel, I think Liam Sheedy was on there. He was turning off on your internet in case anything got out of the Tipperary camp there ahead of the match with Limerick. You wouldn't put it past him, but we touched on it there. There's the perception outside of Tipperary is that there's an awful lot of young fellas coming through with real quick, hard, fast hurlers, particularly a lot of good young forwards coming through. There's another, I suppose, plenty of newcomers, as you say. Who do we need to keep an eye on if you know, the new guard, let's say, coming through?
Yeah, so it's interesting, Don, the way it has gone, because the perception in Tipperary is probably that we have plenty of fast, lively, skillful hurlers, but that maybe what we need are a few of the bigger men who can win ball and break ball and that. And you know, there's a very interesting addition to the panel back in January when Liam Sheedy named his panel, and that was the inclusion of Alan Tynan. Now, Alan Tynan had been on the Tipperary minor hurling and football panel before going away to play rugby, and he's been away for 4 years playing rugby. He's developed into a giant of a man, Ross Gray clubman, and he's in the panel, and that really raised a few eyebrows. And I suppose, not wishing to put pressure on him, but he'd probably be in the same kind of a mold as Gerard Hegarty, you know, big strong man, probably a good man in the air and all that type of thing. And I think that's probably the line that Liam is looking at, or that type of a player. Also then another addition to the panel is Billy McCarthy, who's back after injury. Now, people would remember Billy from being in the panel back in 2017, I think it was, 18 maybe. He was probably the one, it was 17 actually, he was probably the one shining light from a Tipperary perspective in a season that went badly wrong. And Billy, unfortunately, in that summer, suffered a very, very serious knee injury. It wasn't even a cruciate, it was far, far worse. In the time since, he has had 3 cruciate knee injuries, and has really, really gone through a hard time. And again, Billy was named in the panel in January and is doing quite well. He won't be available, I gather, for the game on Saturday. He's not quite there yet. He made a comeback with his club last year, Sarsfields, and it was very, very impressive until the cruciate went again. So he's the one that we're holding high hopes for, that if they can get him right and get him into play, he'd be a similar man, big, tall man, strong man, well able to win ball and go at defenders. And I suppose, you know, one thing, we've lost 3 defenders over the last 2 years, with Dunamare, James Barry and Sean O'Brien all retiring. So there are definitely places in the back line, particularly when you consider that you know, the likes of Pádraig Maher maybe and Brendan Maher have been around for quite some time. Noel McGrath in centre field and Seamus Callan up in the forward line as well. So there are plenty of places up for grabs. It's probably going to come down to the type of player that Liam is looking for now. I mentioned those guys. There's also Dylan Quirk, who came into the team last year. Paddy Cadell broke his way into the team. Jake Morris is one of the faster, lighter guys, full of skill, has been likened a lot to Lar Corbett in the way he plays and that. So, you know, there, as you say, there are plenty of guys there. The thing will be to blend them in and to see what type of a formation Liam and his management team are actually looking at for the coming season.
Yeah, it's almost like we planned this segue, but I promised that we didn't. Colin Kinsler, a Tipperary man exiled in Limerick, as we know. Exiled is still the term we'll say after all these years. But you would have been covering Alan Tynan with the oval shape ball a couple of weeks ago, and now you're going to be covering him with the slitter as well. As Noel correctly says, it's an interesting one that everyone is looking to see. Can Alan Tynan make that move across? But also, just second point on that, Noel touched on it, about the size of the player needed to play modern hurling. And that is one thing that Limerick panel have. They're giants of men.
Yeah, absolutely. Just go back to Alan Tynan first, I suppose. You know, would have first come across him through playing underage with minor hurling and football with Tipperary, and then, you know, his exploits with Cistercian College and Roscrea in the Leinster Schools Cup, and then obviously forcing his way into the academy, and then obviously once you started coaching with young youngsters, his career took off from there down. So that was the making of him. I'm sure everyone in Tipperary is delighted for the contribution you made to him there.
My coaching made him go back to hurling.
Yeah, but you mentioned physicality and size and strength. You know, it's a key part of the game. We've seen it over the years. You know, when Kilkenny were dominant there for those years, you know, the size of their ball winners, half forward line, full back line. That ability to win ball in the air is huge. And Limerick have probably, taken on the template from there. You look at the size of their players in general, the physicality of them, when they get their portrait pictures taken with the skin tight jerseys, a lot of us would keep well away from those, but you can see the remarkable physical condition they're in. And when you marry that physicality with and size and strength with hurling skill, it's a potent weapon. It's really, really difficult for other teams. So you look at the likes of Galway as well. They're a big side physically. They'll fancy their chances this year as well. And there's so much to look forward to. I mean, we don't have pre-season form. We don't have challenge games going into this weekend. It's impossible to know really, how much can teams have done in 3 weeks training. I think John Kiley said during the week, I think something like maybe 8 sessions on the field as a group they'll have had before throw in at 5:30 in the LIT Gaelic grounds on Saturday. All counties in the same boat there, obviously. The fact the games are coming one after the other, you'd imagine teams could end up maybe even playing challenge games midweek once they're allowed back. I think they're allowed back to 10th of May, which is next Monday. So you'll have teams playing, matches, 3 matches in 7 days, if you like, a league match followed by a challenge game with one of the counties in the other group midweek, and then the following weekend playing another league game. And it's about, it'll be fascinating to see how seriously teams take the National League. John Kiley totally dismissed the view that a journalist brought up during the week there at the press conference, wondering were they kind of, glorified challenge games, if you like, the league matches, but John insisted absolutely not. And I'd imagine in Limerick's case, with, as you alluded to earlier, so much competition for places, guys will be chomping at the bit when they get their chance in league games to stake a claim for the championship, because ultimately that is the biggest prize of all.
Okay, let's go around the grounds before we finish up here. Robert, down at Kilkenny, obviously you ask anyone in Kilkenny who's going to win the league and who's going to win the All-Ireland, they'll tell you Kilkenny. But if they don't, who do you fancy as the winners of the league first, and then the All-Ireland title at the end of the year?
You brought it on me there, but I do actually think Kilkenny have a decent chance in the league. Just the way things have come, just looking at the 2 groups, one group is proverbial Munster Championship, really, and then I just think the way the fixtures have lined up for Kilkenny, they actually have a chance to go on a run. They play Dublin on Saturday, which should be a tough game away, but then they have 3 home games on the trot. So I think they have a chance, and then they end up with a tough game away in Ennis Clare. But if they could just get a run going, I think they have the possibility to maybe win the league. There's no final, so it's properly hard to predict what will happen. But I do think they have a chance. On the championship side of things, I do think Limerick are going to be very difficult to beat. I thought they were exceptional in some of the games last year. Even you mentioned earlier, Mike Casey, Richie English out, Dan Morrissey came in full back. Geez, he's nearly better than what was there before. Barry Nash, cornerback, was a bit iffy the first game, but geez, he grew through the championship. So I think that strength and depth is just massive in Limerick. It's just whether they can back up what they did last year. Yeah, but I think Limerick will be very difficult to beat in the championship, to be honest.
Making Limerick people nervous all over the country there with that, Robert. Favourites tags don't sit well on the shoulders of the men in green. Brian, obviously you've already laid out what Offaly and Laois will be expecting to do. What about at the very, very top? Who do you see as being forerunners for the league and then for Liam McCarthy?
I suppose on the league first, I think Waterford might have a shout in the league. I think, they got to the All-Ireland final last year under Liam Cahill's first year. There'll be a good bounce in them, I think, and Cahill will be eager to move them on, and maybe might be looking at a league as a bit of silverware to boost them up. Another young panel, even though the likes of Kevin Moore still around there, but I think Waterford might have a shout, even though they're in a kind of a tough, they're in a massive group, as Robert said, they're pretty much a Munster Championship along with Westmeath. Wexford under Davy Fitz, it's impossible to know anything about what Davy will do. There's no way I say any different, but what way he takes the league, if he goes fairly serious at it, I think they could have a bit of a chance. But if he's looking down the line, if he's thinking this is his last year in Wexford, is he going to be looking towards the championship as his main aim, and is he going to go through the league looking at players, looking at different positions? So it could totally depend on how he looks at it. I would, it's hard to know. I still think Galway are going to be a very hard bet in any competition to enter this year, and it's just, it's generally the second year down there. They weren't too far away last year, to be fair. They didn't get going in the end, but there's such a quality of player, such quality of forward, and all big men have backline as well. And I think Galway win All Ireland. To be honest with you, the league I'm not so sure. Look, it's a bit of a lottery. We don't know what way teams are going to approach it. I think Waterford, maybe Wexford, but for the championship, I have a sneaking suspicion that Galway might beat the Treaty men in the final, but I could be Lynch for saying that now.
We'll take that. Yeah, this will be on YouTube anyway later on, as you can watch it, so people will be able to look back at it in August. Noel, before we'll use you again maybe to the Gremlins on the line, tell us about who do you think is the best chance of winning the league and who do you see winning the All Ireland?
Well, I suppose Tipperary, Borders, Waterford, Clare, Cork, Limerick. If we don't win it ourselves, to one of our neighbours. But I do kind of feel that Chip have a lot to prove. If we don't come through, it'll be the end of a new players leaving, possibly even the manager leaving as well. But in saying that, looking at the way things are stacking up, it's close to Limerick, I think. I agree with what Galway aren't too far away at all. Limerick are, but then look, we thought that is in 2019. In terms of the league, I don't know that it matters too much who wins the league, but things are looking. I think most count unity to see what they want to do in the championship. So I mean, that's a lottery. It could be anybody's title.
Cheers, Noel. Colin Kinsler, finish up with yourself before we go. As I mentioned earlier, Tipman living in Limerick, so this is a difficult choice for you. Who do you think will win the league, and who do you think will go on and bring Liam McCarthy home?
I think the league is a toss-up, Dan. To be honest, I agree with Noel there. I think a lot of teams, because it's so close to the championship, their focus will be on the championship, and it'll be about getting game time and match sharpness into legs and stuff. I think over the next 5 or 6 weeks, I think the league is a toss-up. The winner could come from Division 1B. I'd agree with that point earlier on there that, I think that mini Munster Championship in 1A, it's really, really tough. I think the winners could come from 1B, so certainly wouldn't rule out Kilkenny there in from that point. In terms of Munster and the All-Ireland, looking at the draw, I think it could be a Limerick Tipperary final. Possibly. Maybe it's wishful thinking now, but it could be that. And, who knows? Limerick have had the better of Tipperary, obviously, in the last while. So maybe Tipperary will be due on there. In terms of the All-Ireland, Limerick go into it as favourites, without shadow of a doubt. And, Galway will have learned a lot from last year. Beat Tipperary, gave Limerick a good test. Limerick's strength and depth has been something that's been talked about. We mentioned earlier Mike Casey due back for the championship, Richie English back already. Some new blood introduced to the panel. Good underage players. So they'll be strong contenders. Maybe Limerick to win it back to back. Possibly, yeah. That would probably be, but there's so much to look forward to, Dan. That's the big thing. It's so much to look forward to hurling fans. Hopefully by the latter rounds of the championship, we'll have fans back in stadiums as well. It'll add to the colour and excitement of it. And it's a whole spring and summer of hurling to look forward to, and it's brilliant.
Well, that's certainly it, isn't it? All we can do now at this point is look forward to it. There's so much speculation, as we touched on. Who's going to win the league? Who's going to win the championship? Guaranteed one thing, though, you can read all about it in the iconic newspapers and on all the sites as well across the championship, keeping you up to date across the league and then, of course, into the championship and beyond. So my thanks very much to Robert, to Colin, to Brian and to Noel. Hope you enjoyed that little preview and may the best team win. And if not the best team, Limerick, someone else can win it for this year. But thanks for joining us, lads. We'll talk to you all next time. Appreciate it.